Hello again, viewers. That's my new greeting for a while until I get tired of it. I think it sounds neat. Well, I thought in this video I would talk a little bit about cell phones. We did a video just recently about the TV, and you heard my opinion on the television situation. But I thought I'd talk, like I said, a little bit about cell phones. Now, I want to be careful about what I say in this video as far as how I explain what I'm saying, because I feel like as I go through this video that some of you may think, well, I'm against cell phones. I'm not. I think cell phones are a great thing to have. I think they've revolutionized communications, and I have had several cell phones, and I currently have a cell phone. I have two of them. One I use, one I do not use, but get into that in a minute. But something about cell phones is bothering me more and more, and that is I feel like that as cell phones have gotten more advanced and they have more features on them, I think it's kind of contributed to some bad things happening with us in general. A cell phone started out, I'll tell you guys some history with me. First cell phone I ever had was a bag phone. If you ever seen a bag phone, it was a phone it was a bag. It was a hard shell type of a thing. It looked like a bag sort of, but it was, you couldn't wad it up or anything. It was just a vinyl cover there. And you would unzip this top on it and fold the top over, and inside it looked like a house phone, a miniaturized house phone type of a deal. And you could pick the phone up and dial it in your car. You could hook it up, carry it in your car with you. Had a little antenna that stuck up on the side of it. It looked pretty comical these days. You never see them anymore. But that's how it started out with cell phones, and I had one of those. And then you could also get a phone that mounted in your car, which essentially that was, you have your car where your tunnel was. Most cars or whatever, you had front wheel drive, you didn't have a tunnel, but there on the floor where the hump was, they would mount in this stand of a thing, and it had a cell phone mounted to it. So it just had like a little base, and it had a the receiver. You pick it up and it's wired in. You couldn't just take it with you. So that was a big rage back about 1990, 91, 92, 93, thereabouts. And you'd always see the cars, they would have remember the antennas, you older folks like me, had the antennas mounted to the back window, and it was like a metal, just a little wire antenna to come up, and then it would zzz, it had a coiled section, and then it went on up. Whole thing was probably about a foot high, I guess. And man, that was awesome, because you knew back then somebody had a car phone. They had a car phone, man. The thing was obviously that they were, man, they were with it, man. They had a car phone. And they used to actually even sell, you could go to Walmart and places like that and buy a fake car phone antenna to stick on your window. And I think I had one actually. But that's how cell phones started out. And I had a bag phone. I did not have a car phone. But then, of course, we all know that they went on to handheld cell phones, and they've gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and got more features on them. But the main thing is believe it or not, you younger folks may be surprised as everything to know this, but cell phones started out as being nothing but a telephone. You couldn't text, you couldn't play games, you couldn't check the weather, you couldn't check the internet, couldn't check movies, you couldn't do any of this on your phone. It was just a phone, much like this one, this little flip phone. But the thing that has bothered me some is I see, of course we have the ongoing problem of people talking and driving their car, talking on a cell phone, and I see that all the time, and I don't know that that's ever going to be resolved until they actually, whoever's going to be ultimately responsible for that is either going to be legislation or it's the cell phone companies, the manufacturers. Somebody is going to have to man up and deal with this problem, and the easy way out of it is to disable cell phones when they're in a moving vehicle, and it can be done. The technology does exist to do that easily, but there obviously somebody is buying somebody off or lobbying them or something like that to keep this from happening. But I'm going to tell you that until this does happen, until they disable cell phones from moving vehicles, it ain't going to happen, because I see people do it. I've seen the county sheriff talking on the phone. I've seen the state troopers. I've seen the city police. I've seen bus drivers. I've seen truck drivers. Everybody. I've seen this recently, talking on their cell phones, and you know, I know people are going to, probably the majority of people are going to be irresponsible enough to keep on doing this, no matter how many people they see get killed in car wrecks or how much bad news they hear about it. They're going to keep doing it because it's them, it's their car, it's their phone. They should do whatever they want to do. You know, that's fine until you kill somebody, and then you're probably going to wish you didn't do that. But you know, be that as it may, that's one problem. And then, you know, of course, I think I'm kind of cynical. I think that people, as a rule these days, this day and age, don't have enough concentration available anyway to talk on the phone and drive or do anything else. You've seen people walking and talking on their cell phone and walk into doors, and they fall in fountains, fall off the sidewalk, they trip and fall. All this crap's happening, you know. And I don't feel bad for anybody like that. I laugh my tail off when I see somebody do something like that, because I say, you deserved it. You know, you ought to actually try to pay some attention to your surroundings. But I tell you what, the number one thing, like I said, I'm not making this video to preach to people, to tell them what they ought to and not do, but I'm just telling you what bothers me the most about cell phones, in which these I think they really ought to just be called wireless devices these days. But I saw this tonight. I was out eating on the weekend tonight, and I saw this man and this woman. And folks, I'm going to promise you this, they were not more than a foot away from each other, and they're obviously a couple, and they were facing each other, a foot away from each other, waiting to go into the restaurant, waiting to be called, and they both had their cell phones out, like this one, and they both had them on, and both looking at them, standing there face to face. And I see that all the time, and I have to ask you, I'm not trying to sound mad about it, but what the fuck are you thinking? If you're sitting there and you're a guy and you have a nice, beautiful woman that's your wife, or you got your kids there with you that want to talk to you. I saw this little girl try to get her dad's attention for 5 minutes one day. Cute little girl. She's going to be about 2 years old, and Daddy, of course, was sitting there looking at his cell phone. He was sitting there looking at something on the cell phone. It was important. He had to look at it. Probably sports scores or some other junk people look at. And she's tugging on him, trying to get his attention. No, and she wasn't being a little brat. She was just like, say, Daddy, like that. And he'd mumble something to her. And finally, a couple minutes later, Daddy. Finally, Daddy turned the cell phone off. He drug himself away from the cell phone enough to look at her and talk to her. And I'm thinking, you sorry sack of shit. You know what? If you had your daughter, your son, what if that little girl happened to get killed in the next day or two? Nobody wants that. But what if she did, and you're sitting there and you had your cell phone, you're talking, looking at your cell phone. It's important, you know. And but that man, that woman were doing that, and I see that all the time. People will sit somewhere and not talk to each other, but they're looking at it. Well, they're looking at it. Oh, what's on this phone? Let me do something on this phone. Let me look, see if anybody texted me. Let me see what my Facebook is doing. Let me do this. I don't want to talk to you. I want to actually just look at my phone. You're screwed up. That's what you are. It's my entire opinion. People that do that, you're either a really boring person, you're two boring people, or something's wrong with you. So that's the only thing I can understand. I'm not against the technology. I'm not against being able to use the phone for checking email and things like that. That's no problem. That's great, you know. But seriously, when you're on a personal level and you have another person there, somebody's trying to talk to you or somebody's with you, seriously, you ought to disconnect from it for a little bit. Actually talk to the people. That's what we did before we had cell phones. You know what we did? We actually talked to each other. You know, or if we didn't want to talk to each other, we went in another room. Or we watched TV. Went back when we had good TV to watch. And I know some of you might be going to be saying, you're just an old fatty daddy. No, I'm not. Because I'll tell you a story about these two phones real quick. I'm going to wrap this up so I don't preach too long. But I had this phone for a while, this Samsung, and this is one of these, you can do all this crap and move, that's not so bad. But I'll just say this. Let me interject myself and say this Samsung, this is a T528G, and this is one of the worst cell phones I've ever had in my life. That Samsung would put their name on this thing is beyond me. It's terrible. I constantly get stuff stuck on the home page here. All these little icons get stuck. This calendar would get stuck on. All this crap gets stuck up here, and you have to figure out how to remove it. And I've had these phones before, guys. It's not that I don't know how to work them. It's not that. I can do that just like anybody, But this thing's terrible. Don't ever buy one of these phones. Samsung ought to be ashamed of themselves. Put that thing out. It's garbage, But so anyway, I've had one of these phones, but now I'm back to a flip phone. This is a LG, and it's just a simple little flip phone. You just use it to dial numbers, and I love it. If I ever buy another one of these type of phones, it'll be an iPhone. It's the only one I ever buy, because this thing, the main problem I had with this one was when you try to dial it, you have to push the dial, and then you have this keyboard here. Hope you can see this. Look how small these buttons are, and look how big my finger is. So, trying to dial this thing, I always end up getting the wrong number, and have to go back and like that, and it would drop calls, and it just, it's horrible to use. It's too small, so I didn't like it for that reason, and it would lock up. And the worst thing this thing would do, while I'm ranting about this phone, worst thing this thing would do was, I'd be going through the day, and I'd think, what, I hadn't got a call I was waiting on, or someone was going to call me and they didn't, so I'd check my phone, and this son of a bitch would be off. It'd be turned off like that. It would do an update, and then it would not turn itself back on again. It would turn itself off when it felt like it. And you want to know what the most infuriating thing this little bastard does is you turn it off, and 2 minutes later it turns itself back on again. I've turned this phone off 5 times in a row, and it turned itself back on again after I turned it off. And I'm like, you little asshole. So I took the battery out of it. I was like, screw you, you little fucker. You're not going to tell me when you're going to come on and off. Excuse my language, guys, but this thing is, this phone, this is going to be get out of here. This is going to be the subject of an update video about phones. We're going to update this phone, and I guarantee you it's going to be good. It's going to be a good update. It's going to be permanent. So that's why I went back to this phone. I will not buy another one of these crap phones like this ever. The only one I'll buy will be, like I said, an iPhone, because I think they're the only decent one there is. That's my personal opinion. Alright guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you later, alligator.